The movie begins with Terry Richmond, a former U.S. Marine trainer, riding his bike along a quiet road while listening to music. Out of nowhere, a police cruiser rams into him, sending him crashing to the ground. The officer behind the wheel, Evan Marston, steps out with his gun drawn, soon joined by another officer, Steve Lauren. Marston falsely claims that he had been chasing Terry for miles, accusing him of trying to flee. Still disoriented from the crash, Terry insists he never heard any sirens. But the officers ignore him and start searching his bag. Inside, they discover a package containing $36,000 in cash. Terry explains that the money is legitimate, most of it from selling his car and cashing out his share of a Chinese restaurant. Part of it is meant to bail out his cousin, who's in jail for a minor drug charge, and the rest is for buying a truck to start a small business. Despite his explanation, the officers seize the money, calling it suspicious and possibly linked to drugs. They tell him he can fight for it in court, but that the process could take years. Not wanting to risk further trouble, Terry allows them to take the cash and leaves, angry but free. Determined to help his cousin, Terry heads to the courthouse. There, he meets a court secretary named Elliot, who tells him that a seizure receipt is useless. Without the actual money, he can't post bail. Things get worse when Terry learns that all inmates will soon be transferred to a state facility because the local jail is being renovated. Elliot leaves for the day, leaving Terry frustrated and desperate. Just then, a young clerk and aspiring lawyer named Summer arrives. She listens to Terry's story and explains that under civil asset forfeiture laws, police can confiscate cash simply on suspicion, and recovering it through the courts could take a year or more. She also warns him that the police captain has powerful allies in town and urges him to be cautious. After learning that Terry's cousin once testified against a notorious crime boss, which would make a transfer to state prison extremely dangerous, Summer advises him to find another way to raise bail quickly. Out of options, Terry calls his former business partner, Mr. Liu, asking for another $10,000. Mr. Liu agrees to send the money by mail, since it's the only feasible option in their small town. That night, Terry camps out in the woods, staring at the police station's location on his phone, determined to protect his cousin. The next morning, he arrives at the police station early and files a report claiming that 2 officers robbed him. He describes Marston and Steve in detail, but when one of them enters the room, the situation quickly grows tense. Before things can escalate, Police Chief Sandy Burns steps in and calmly insists that everything the officers did was lawful, leaving Terry powerless but more determined than ever to fight back. After Terry's confrontation at the station, Chief Sandy delivers a thinly veiled threat, warning him to stop pushing or face charges for interfering with police duties. He even orders Terry to stop recording their conversation and leave immediately. Desperate to clear his name, Terry shows proof that the seized money came from his restaurant investment, hoping it would end the misunderstanding. When it becomes clear the chief has no intention of helping, Terry makes a last-ditch offer. He only wants $10,000 back to bail out his cousin, willing to let the police keep the rest. The chief pretends to cooperate, telling Terry to return on Monday morning to visit his cousin and settle the matter. That night, Terry sleeps outside again, this time under heavy rain. By Monday morning, he rushes back to the station, only to realize he's been deceived. The inmate transfer bus has already left just minutes earlier. Furious and heartbroken, Terry cuts through the woods to catch up. He manages to reach the highway and shouts to his cousin Mike through the bus window, urging him to request protective custody at the state facility. Mike nods in understanding as the bus drives away. Hoping for good news, Terry calls his former partner, Mr. Liu, about the promised $10,000. Instead, he learns that the police have raided the restaurant and seized the company's safe, claiming a drug investigation. The raid was triggered by Terry's earlier report to the police. Mr. Liu, now in trouble himself, apologizes and says he can't help anymore. Running out of options, Terry returns to the courthouse and pleads with Summer for help. Initially, she refuses, afraid that getting involved could cost her job. Terry leaves quietly, but moments later, Summer runs after him with new information. She's discovered irregularities in Mike's case. The charges against him are minor, and the bail is unusually high. It doesn't add up. She explains that there are only 2 realistic ways to free Mike: a direct court order. Meanwhile, at the police station, Officer Steve reviews Terry's file. It lists him as a Marine Corps martial arts program instructor, but with no combat record. Relieved, Chief Sandy assumes Terry isn't dangerous. When the clerk Jess finally manages to search what MCMAP means, she realizes Terry was a Marine combat trainer, skilled in close quarters fighting and weapons. Just then, she spots Terry arriving outside and alerts the chief. Armed and ready, Sandy steps out to confront him. Terry calmly reminds the chief of their earlier deal, the $10,000 he was promised. But the chief mocks him, warning him not to set terms with the police. Confident and unshaken, Terry replies that they've backed him into a corner, and now he'll have to respond differently. Inside, the officers realize the gravity of the situation and begin calling in backup units. As tensions rise, Chief Sandy confronts Terry outside the station, but the situation escalates instantly. When Sandy reaches for his gun, Terry reacts with lightning speed. He disarms the chief and unloads the weapon in seconds. Officer Steve rushes out with his gun drawn, but Terry uses Sandy as a human shield and quickly overpowers him too. The nearby construction workers, startled by the chaos, try to intervene. One even aims a weapon, but Terry forces the chief to order everyone to stand down. Using Sandy as leverage, Terry forces his way back into the police station and locks the doors behind them. Inside, he demands to know who else is present and learns that Officer Jess is still there. He orders her to disarm the other officers and take him to the evidence room. What Terry finds there shocks him. Stacks of cash and illegal weapons, far beyond what a small-town department should possess. It's clear the police have been running a corrupt operation for years. Terry takes only what he came for, $10,000 to bail out his cousin, and warns Jess not to do anything reckless. She cooperates, pretending to have the situation under control as they exit. To the workers outside, she explains that Terry is a veteran, struggling with personal issues, and that the misunderstanding is over. The two drive away in a police cruiser, passing Officer Marston on the road. Jess subtly signals that everything is fine, preventing any pursuit. Once they reach a safe distance, Terry releases Jess, returning her gun after removing the bullets. He tells her to report that he escaped, retrieves his bike from the cruiser, and heads straight to the courthouse. By now, the entire city is on alert, with police units searching for him. With Summer's help, Terry finally posts bail for his cousin Mike. As Elliot counts the money, Summer rushes to process the release papers. But before they can finish, police storm the courthouse. Terry braces himself as officers order him to the ground. Steve fires a taser, but Terry fights through the pain, briefly resisting before being overpowered and handcuffed. Summer records everything on her phone, yelling for them not to hurt him. Later, instead of being taken to jail, Terry is loaded into a patrol car and driven to meet Chief Sandy. During the ride, the chief admits that he underestimated Terry and probably would have handled things differently had he known his military background. When asked what he saw inside the evidence room, Terry tells him the truth: stacks of unaccounted cash and military-grade weapons. Sandy shrugs it off, claiming the money funds their department, and goes back into the community. In reality, the police have been illegally selling weapons to other departments and even criminal groups for profit. The car stops at a hospital where Sandy throws Terry's remaining $26,000 onto the ground and orders his cuffs removed. He informs Terry that his cousin Mike has been attacked and stabbed in prison and is being flown in for emergency treatment. Enraged, Terry reminds him that he had warned this would happen, but now the damage is already done. Chief Sandy offers Terry one final deal: take his remaining money, collect the truck the police arranged for him, and disappear from town forever. If he refuses, they'll charge him with enough crimes to keep him in prison for decades, or worse, make sure he never leaves alive. Before Terry can respond, a helicopter lands nearby, carrying his cousin Mike, gravely injured. Rushing to the landing pad, Terry arrives just in time to see him die from his wounds, never regaining consciousness. The coroner informs him that Mike had listed Terry as his next of kin, leaving all his belongings behind. Heartbroken, Terry realizes the system he tried to fight has completely destroyed everything he cared about. Later, Terry meets Summer, who offers to drive him out of town. On the road, she hands him a set of files containing evidence of a larger conspiracy, dozens of cases like Mike's, where people were arrested on petty charges, held for months, and given impossibly high bail. Summer believes the police are running a profit scheme through the local jail system, but Terry, broken and defeated, doesn't want to hear it. He tells her he's done fighting. All he wants now is to leave. As they drive, a police car follows them at a distance, but Summer assures him it's just a friend, making sure they get out safely. Once they pass the town limits, the cruiser turns back. She drops Terry off near a rural road, where he thanks her and gives her his number, just in case. He then goes to pick up the truck arranged by the police, trying to put the nightmare behind him. That night, trouble finds Summer. Someone breaks into her house while she's sleeping, injects her with drugs, and leaves the syringe behind as evidence. Disoriented and terrified, she almost calls the police, but realizes that doing so would only ruin her life. Instead, she calls Terry for help. When he arrives, he finds her collapsed and trembling. She confesses that a drug test would expose her past. Years ago, she'd been an addict and lost custody of her daughter after a petty theft. She's worked hard to rebuild her life and can't risk losing everything again. The next morning, her fears come true. Someone reports her supposed relapse to the court, and she's forced to take a drug test that she knows will come back positive. Alone afterward, she breaks down, realizing her career and her chance to regain her daughter are gone. Meanwhile, Terry drives through town when he's suddenly stopped by Officer Steve. Two more unmarked police cruisers block the road from both sides, their lights off to keep the dash cams disabled. Steve reminds Terry that he was warned to leave and accuses him of defying the order. He then plants a gun on him, threatening to frame him for another crime. Terry refuses to back down, and in the chaos that follows, Steve opens fire. Terry is hit in the back, but manages to fight back, disarm him, and escape in his truck. Bullets shatter the windows as he speeds off into the forest, barely escaping with his life. Elsewhere, Summer stands outside her daughter's school, quietly watching her play from a distance. When the teachers notice and remind her she isn't allowed there, she leaves in tears, only to be approached by a police car moments later. They reunite at Terry's old workplace, the Chinese restaurant. Inside, Mr. Liu treats Terry's wounds, carefully removing the bullet fragments from his back and patching him up. Summer watches in silence, realizing that they are both caught in something far bigger than they ever imagined. Terry recuperates at the restaurant, while Mr. Liu, a former field medic, quietly removes the worst of his wounds. After Mr. Liu and his assistant leave, Terry asks Summer to explain what she uncovered about the department. She lays out a disturbing pattern. The police are manipulating misdemeanor cases, inflating bail, and keeping people locked up for exactly 90 days, so recorded evidence auto-deletes. The motive isn't just brutality, it's profit. Terry, who only wanted to save his cousin, snaps out of resignation and vows to make the department pay for what they did. They visit Elliot at a community event and press him until he admits there was a civil lawsuit a couple years earlier that nearly bankrupted the town, the lawsuit that should have shut the department down. Instead, detectives found a different revenue stream in illegal forfeitures, and the suspicious arrests began soon after. Elliot hints that the courthouse itself holds archived footage that could expose the scheme, but confronting the judge becomes necessary. That night they go to the judge's home. When the judge reveals the background, an illegal search that cost a man his life, and a city desperate to cover its losses, he collapses from an overdose of his wife's pills. They call for help and watch paramedics take him away. The discovery confirms their suspicion. The courthouse basement must contain the hard drives and SD cards with the missing footage, including Mike's arrest. Under cover of darkness, Terry and Summer break into the courthouse basement, only to find officers already setting fires to destroy the archives. Thinking fast, Summer smothers flames with what she can find, and they reach a storage room full of hard drives. They spot dozens of archived drives and recall that over 20 body cam cards went missing in recent weeks. One of those must hold Mike's arrest. As they prepare to leave, Terry restarts a small fire to cover their tracks, while Summer slips back to retrieve her own urine sample, the one that will prove she was framed. She's caught by police during the attempt and dragged away. From the alley, Terry watches helplessly as she's taken, then uses the chaos to follow the convoy until it splits. He rams a lone cruiser, overpowers an officer, and forces him to make a call. Next morning, Chief Sandy's men wait at Rebel Ridge with Summer locked in a car, setting the stage for a final, dangerous confrontation. At dawn, Rebel Ridge turns into a trap. Hidden, snipers and officers wait in position. Instead, he calls Chief Sandy, accusing him of breaking their deal and starting this chaos. Not far away, Officer Marston spots Terry's truck parked by the roadside. When he smashes the window, he realizes too late that he's been tricked. The officer from the previous night is tied and gagged in the driver's seat. Back at the police station, Terry has already made his move. He's chained his truck to the building's pipes, ripping open a section of the wall to reach the evidence room. Officer Jess radios the others in panic, urging them to abandon Rebel Ridge and return to headquarters. Chief Sandy enters the storage area, gun drawn, but Terry takes him down with non-lethal rounds before he can react. When Jess rushes in, Terry quickly disarms her, but spares her, revealing that he knows she's the insider who's been quietly helping Summer. He gives her the SD cards containing the incriminating footage and warns her that the chief will kill to keep them buried. Then, strapping on a vest and grabbing weapons, he threatens to burn the station, cash, guns, and all, unless he gets proof that Summer is safe. Moments later, police surround the the building. Jess convinces Terry to trust her, and he hands back her loaded weapon. But as he steps outside, she turns her gun on him, pretending to arrest him to prevent bloodshed. The officers rush in to rescue the chief, while Terry drops his bag of weapons, realizing Jess is trying to save lives in her own way. She passes the SD cards to Officer Steve, but instead of preserving them, he crushes them under his boot. Then he reveals Summer lying unconscious in his car, claiming she overdosed. He insists Terry should be executed immediately, but Marston steps in, demanding they arrest Terry and get Summer to a hospital. The standoff turns tense, and the line between justice and revenge begins to blur. As the situation spirals, the officers find themselves pointing guns at each other. Tensions explode when Chief Sandy suddenly steps outside and shoots Officer Marston in the legs. As Marston collapses, Terry realizes the truth. Marston, not Jess, was the real whistleblower inside the department all along. While the officers argue about calling for medical help, Terry acts fast. He drags Marston behind cover, grabs his weapons bag, and launches a counterattack. Using flashbangs and his Marine training, Terry disables the officers one by one, quick, efficient, and non-lethal. Finally, he takes down Steve in a brutal hand-to-hand fight. Bleeding out, Marston tells Terry their only chance: reach a cruiser and activate its dash cam. Once the emergency lights are on, the system records the previous 3 minutes, proof of everything. Terry sprints through gunfire, reaches Steve's cruiser, and flips the switch. The lights flare on, capturing Chief Sandy opening fire on him. Undeniable evidence. As they speed away, Marston explains how to counteract Summer's overdose, but before they can get far, Steve latches onto the side of the cruiser, trying to pull Terry out. The vehicle's tires blow, slowing them down. Summer suddenly wakes up, spots Steve hanging from the window, and pushes him off, saving them both. With the dash cam still recording, Marston warns Terry to protect the footage at all costs. The DVR is in the trunk. Moments later, Chief Sandy and his men close in, ready to ram them off the road. But at the last second, Jess makes her choice. She slams her cruiser into the chief's car, sending him veering off the highway. Before the others can react, Jess radios in, reporting that an officer is down and that she's escorting the wounded to the hospital. The rest of the units fall in line behind her, unknowingly providing Terry and Summer a police escort. With sirens blazing, they finally reach the hospital. Terry rushes Summer inside for treatment, then turns back for the dash cam, knowing that little device now holds the only truth that can bring the entire department down. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below.